This meeting is now called to order. For roll call, everyone is in attendance this evening. We'll now take a moment of reflection and respect, please. Thank you. Confirmation of the agenda.
That Council adopts the agenda for the meeting of October 20th, 2021, as amended by adding the following items: memo regarding report plan 1121, background report for proposed 2021 general housekeeping amendment to the zoning bylaw, and memo regarding CIP notice circulation received on October 19th, 2021 comments.
Okay, thank you. I need someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Barber and Deputy Mayor Andrews. Are there any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest this evening? Okay, seeing none, we'll move into delegations and public meetings. And this evening, I'd like to welcome Warden Tom Marks and Elgin County CAO Julie Gagnon, and they're here to present some information for us from the county, and it's an update. So welcome, and you can start whenever you're ready.
Well, thank you, Mayor French. Good evening, Aylmer Council. I'd like to thank you for inviting the County of Elgin to your meeting tonight to provide an update about county activities over the course of 2021. And to let you know about some of the exciting projects that are underway in Elgin. Cultivating a close relationship with our local municipal partners is a top priority of county council, and I hope to engage in open two-way communication regarding your council's priorities. The County of Elgin already partners with the town of Aylmer to provide seamless, efficient services to local residents, and we look forward to enhanced partnerships in the future. In 2020, Council completed both a strategic plan for 2022 as well as a service delivery review. Both the goals and priorities contained in this strategic plan, as well as recommendations from the service delivery review, have guided Elgin's actions over the past year. The COVID-19 pandemic continues to be a challenge for all municipalities. However, we have all become accustomed to navigating rapidly changing circumstances together as a team, ensuring a consistent and coordinated response across the county. In spite of the pandemic, Elgin County has had an extremely productive year. We have invested significantly in our critical infrastructure, begun a coordinated review of our official plan, engaged with the public with increased frequency using new and diverse methods, and begun the process of a digital transformation with a focus on rural connectivity. I will now turn the presentation over to our Chief Administrative Officer, Julie Gagnon, who will discuss each of these initiatives in more detail. Julie?
Julie, are you on mute by any chance? We can't hear you, Julie. No, we still can't hear you.
Do we have any IT people?
Julie, it's Josh speaking. Just in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, where you see the microphone, sometimes on GoToMeetings, you just have to switch the input. I'm sure you're trying that. Or at times as well, if you've got a pair of microphone or a headset of any sort, that might also assist.
Warden Marks, did you want to take over for Julie and just maybe go through the slides and show us some of the information and share some of the ideas with us? Or are you prepared for that, Warden Marks?
Well, I'm not prepared, but if that's the last resort, we'll certainly try.
Well, maybe if you wanted to start, maybe Julie can get her computer to work for her sound.
Wonder if she logged out and logged back on.
If she would like to, yeah, that might work.
Is there someone that can forward the slides?
Yep, certainly. Warden Marks, it's Josh. If at your direction, I'll move the slides for you.
All right, yeah, if you go to the next one, please. And we've had the message from myself and the strategic plan and the service delivery review. And we want to engage with what's new for the county and exciting and certainly hear from you, the town of Aylmer, and your kind of wish list in any way that the county can engage and help you. But perhaps move on to the next slide. You've heard my message, so another one. And Mary's been very involved in this, the strategic plan. It's all about serving, growing Elgin and investing in Elgin. And I think we're starting to get some traction that way. But the service delivery review, it's all of our agendas. It's all pretty much focused on that. And we try to align in things. You see, Julie, you're back. Can we hear from you?
We still can't hear you, Julie.
All right, well, she's in for a treat. I will continue on. Next slide, please. And one more, please. And that's actually took me a while. I've seen that picture before, but that's Catherine from, I don't know if you noticed, Mary.
Yeah, it's Catherine Thompson.
Right, right from town of Aylmer. So that's
right.
her second life as a model, but and her daughter, very cute. But continue on, please. So our infrastructure projects, I think the one that I'm quite proud of and actually got to cut the ribbon there was the lift bridge down in Port Stanley, and that was quite a complicated thing. It's an 80-plus-year-old bridge, but they've renovated it for the future. It's digitally, mechanically, all ready for the next 30, 40, 50 years in the future. But most of the bugs are all worked out and working good, so we're quite proud of that.
Mr. Warden, can you hear me now?
Oh, perfect. You're back.
Yes.
Welcome.
Well, troubleshooting. I apologize sincerely to your council and to the community for the tech issues there, but I'm happy to take over from here. The next bullet under infrastructure project does cover removal of the temporary bridge in Port Bruce, and we're moving that to Southold. So that's going to replace the Meeks Bridge. We've also recently completed the Village of Rodney reconstruction in West Elgin, and we're in the process of developing a transportation master.
You're on mute again, Julie.
Is that working now?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
I apologize. So we've recently hired a senior engineering design and construction technologist, bringing engineering design in-house as well. And I'm sure you're all aware as you drive by that the Terrace Lodge redevelopment is well on its way to and it's on schedule and on budget, and we're scheduled to have that completed in 2023. So Josh, if you could advance to the next slide. Thanks. In terms of planning and economic development, we're currently undertaking a 5-year review of our official plan, and this is scheduled to be completed in the winter of 2022. We hired a planning technician to enhance the customer support offered through Land Division Committee, and we're modernizing some of our land division processes. We're working with the Township of Southold to facilitate the redevelopment of the former Ford assembly plant in Southold. And that's work that we're doing with Broccolini Real Estate Group. As well, Economic Development, Planning, and GIS is working with our local municipal partners to develop a digitally mapped vacant land inventory. And I know this has been received with some excitement as we've been visiting our other local municipal partners. So something that's been a bit overdue for our community. Economic Development is also participating in a field support campaign with CTV. So something you're gonna wanna watch out for if you haven't seen it yet. Next slide, please. We have some murals, and I know one was launched in the town of Aylmer, but this is celebrating the history of transportation, and those are going up in on select municipal buildings across our community, thanks to a very generous bequest left to us from Donna Vera Evans Bushel. Terrace Lodge Redevelopment fundraising campaign has, despite some challenges presented by the pandemic, managed to raise an incredible $113,000 to date. And this campaign is slated to run for 3 years. We launched a dedicated engagement site, and the link is provided on your slide there. And if you haven't visited it yet, I really encourage you to do so. So we're using this platform, Engage Elgin, to engage in two-way conversations and communications with the public on various issues like the Transportation Master Plan, official plan, budget process, Terrace Lodge redevelopment. This past year, we gathered a lot of public opinions through multiple surveys related to transportation, connectivity, things like accessibility, budget spending, and even seniors recreation. We've partnered with our local municipal partners to organize and promote activities related to acknowledging the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. And we're excited to announce that the Elgin County Wardens Golf Tournament raised $20,000 in support for the Elgin Middlesex United Way. Next slide, please. Earlier this year, we hired a Director of Information Technology Services, and this is in support of our desire and need to develop a digital transformation strategy for Elgin County. As well, we established a connectivity committee, and they continue to work on solving our connectivity challenges across the county, something that was certainly perpetuated as a result of the pandemic. The committee and council engaged a consultant to help support this work, and we'll soon have a report that we can share with our municipal partners in the coming months. We hired a digital services librarian to help support increased use of virtual programming and materials across our 10 Elgin County branch libraries. And we're implementing some new back-of-house software that will undoubtedly create some efficiencies, and that's a human capital management software. We also launched our first ever county employee intranet, and this is to facilitate access to corporate updates, wellness information, HR policies, and important forms and documents for our staff and for members of council. Next slide, please. In terms of partnerships, we are currently reviewing the road maintenance agreement with our local municipal partners. As well, we are in the process of exploring a formalized shared service in the area of human resources, and this is for interested local municipal partners. We're also currently providing community emergency management services to the communities of Southold, Dutton, Dunwich, and West Elgin, as well as temporary support to the Township of Malahide. We have been recognized by the provincial government as a regional fire training college, and this is following the closure of the fire school in Gravenhurst in April of 2021 actually. And we've successfully completed 10 fire training courses in 2021, and we have a full slate of courses scheduled, about 40 in fact, for 2022. We continue to work closely with our local municipal partners to provide a consistent and coordinated approach to the pandemic for our community, and that's as much as possible, recognizing that there are, of course, local nuances that have to be considered. We also supported the joint initiative of the Town of Aylmer, City of St. Thomas, and County of Elgin in their Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan. So 5 high-level priorities have been identified and are currently represented by action tables. And then we have an overarching integration table that will oversee all activities. Next slide, please. So Warden Marks and I recently met with Mayor French and your CIO, Andy, and we're very interested in hearing from council as to what local priorities are happening in your community. As a critical component to Elgin County's success is collaboration with our local municipal partners. Since the onset of the pandemic, our local administrators group has been meeting weekly, and we've been working closely to develop the community-wide resources and supports when appropriate. So I very much appreciate the support of your CIO and the great work that he's doing for your community. And with that, again, I'll quickly apologize for the tech difficulties I experienced. I'm sure we've all been there at some point during the pandemic, and pass things back to Warden Mark.
Thanks, Julie. Again, I'm actually amazed every time I get on a Zoom meeting, and successfully, but certainly, please speak up and let us know any questions. We'll try, and if we don't have the answer, we'll get it for you, but welcome any comments.
Council, do you have any questions or comments? Councillor Barber?
Thank you, Mayor French. To Warden Marks, one comment and one question, if I may. The Elgin County promotional ad was really well done. Thank you for that. And the question is the Meeks Bridge. How's construction coming along on that?
We're nearing the final. I was asked by Councillor Kravitz the other day. We're getting close. It's a matter of weeks. But as far as your first comment, I'll pass that on to the staff. I'm not vain enough to take credit for that, but I agree with you. It was well done.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any other comments or questions from council? Councillor Ham.
Thank you, through you, your worship. Given that we're this exciting new development with Terrace Lodge is happening, I'm curious to see how we see things unfolding, given that what during the pandemic, all that's been revealed in the homes and the struggles and the challenges that the new development, have you been able to address, or will it be addressed in the care of our seniors in our community with our 3 homes, especially given with the new build with Terrace Lodge?
Julie, do you want to take that?
Certainly. So yes, the pandemic did bring to light a number of issues in particular in private sector and non-municipally run homes. Notwithstanding that, there have been some identified for municipal homes. So we have, as much as possible, stayed on top of any sort of ministry reports that have come forward or recommendations for facility improvements, and incorporated those within our existing facilities and into the plans for the Terrace Lodge redevelopment. So I think we will be able to offer an enhanced level of care through a renovated facility, even partway through renovations, but especially following completion in 2023. But you've raised a very good point, Councillor Ham, and this is something that is certainly ongoing as we see auditors' reports and ministry reports and receive ministry inspections of our facilities. And we continue to pivot and adjust and respond to feedback from our staff, the community, residents, and the ministry. So hopefully that answers your question.
Do you have any further questions, Councillor Ham?
Yes, thank you. That was, I just realized that with the need that there is with seniors care and the respect and the dignity that they need for what they have given us beforehand. It's thank you very much. I do appreciate that that's being addressed, and I look forward to them getting equal quality of life as the rest of our Elgin County community and town of Aylmer. Thank you.
Okay, are there any further comments or questions? Councillor Oslach.
Yes, your worship. To Mark, There is a new hospice being built in Elgin County. Is the county involved with that at all?
Well, I think in 2018, early in our term, we had a delegation come in. And at that time, the county of Elgin passed a resolution, correct me if I'm wrong, Mary, but at this time, we took the approach that we all are behind the idea of a hospice for Elgin. We're enthusiastic supporters, but at this time, because of some of our obligations to the Elgin General Hospital, among others, that we're giving them any way we can help, but not in the financial at this time. So we told them that back in 2018, and I think they're well aware of that. But I think I can speak for all of Elgin County Council. We're all supporters of it. We know there's a need for it, but we do have our mandates.
Do you have any further questions or comments, Councillor Oslach?
No, Mark has answered quite eloquently.
Okay. Are there any other comments or questions from council? Okay. What I will suggest to council is if you do think of something that you feel is important and you'd like to get an answer, or if you have any suggestions, by all means, please reach out to Julie or to Warden Marks, and they'll make sure that you get the proper information that you need. So I guess with no further questions or comments, I'd like to thank Julie and Tom for coming this evening, and have a great evening.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Julie and I started the morning down in Aylmer, now we're ending it. So thank you for the invitation, and certainly have a good meeting tonight. Take care.
Okay, take care. Thank you so much. Josh, do you have a resolution for us, please?
That the presentation of Warden Tom Marks and Elgin County CAO Julie Gagne regarding the 2021 Elgin County update be received as information.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Charlton and Councillor Ham. Are there any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. So we will be moving into a public meeting under the Planning Act. So to commence the public meeting, we'll need a resolution, please, Josh.
That council do now commence a public meeting at 7:22 p.m. to receive input from the public with respect to the report Plan 1121, background report for proposed 2021 general housekeeping amendment to the zoning bylaw, and report CAO 4621, respecting a community improvement plan update.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Chapman and Councillor Oslach. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. This public meeting is taking place under the Planning Act 1990 as amended. At this virtual public meeting, council will hear public representations in respect to amendments to the following reports. Report Plan 1121, background report for proposed 2021 general housekeeping amendment to the zoning bylaw, and report CAO 4621, community improvement plan update. Please note that those who do not provide comment or written submission prior to the passage of a bylaw amending the community improvement plan may not be afforded the right to appeal to the local planning appeals tribunal. So we'll start off with report Plan 1121. It's a background report for proposed 2021. It's a general housekeeping amendment to the zoning bylaw. Council will hear comments in the following order: Manager of Planning and Development amendment overview and any questions, additional comments based on council questions. 2, public when the individuals are asked to clearly state their name and address for the record of the clerk. Clerk, if there are any additional communications received with respect to this application, and back to the Manager of Planning and Development, available for clarification where required. So Christy, we'll start off with you and you can give us an overview and we'll think about what questions we're going to ask you when you're finished. So thank you, Christy.
Good evening, Council. Thank you, Mayor French, sorry. Through you, this evening we're presenting a background report and an accompanying draft amending bylaw to the zoning bylaw. So what we have done is we have taken the background reports that were provided on October 6th and started turning them into a regulatory framework for implementation through an amending bylaw. What we did was we categorized the range of amendments into 3 categories. So we have general administrative amendments, we have amendments related to authorizing and permitting additional secondary units, and then additional residential units, and then the third one is the holding provision. So what we've appended is a preliminary draft, and based on some of the feedback we've received, some of the questions we've answered, we anticipate that we will take information back, tweak and revise where necessary, and then come back at a future meeting of council with a revised bylaw for reading. So just briefly, what we were provided with following the posting of the agenda was firstly a memo that we've prepared based on a number of informal and formal questions we've received based from the time I started till present. We've received a number of questions, particularly on additional residential units. So what we did was we summarized them in a frequently asked questions type format, so that the information that we provided to one individual is now public record. And we're hoping that this will form the basis of a future guideline or guiding document on additional residential units. In addition to these questions, we also received formal written comments from Ms. Barb Rosser. She is the registered professional planner representing Performance Communities, Inc., or HAHO Homes, and she has provided some comments with respect to the holding provision. So in Ms. Rosser's comments, she's just recommended that she prefers the second, or her planning opinion is that the second is a more robust option for the H6 provisions, and that she has further recommended that setback requirements be added just to provide a little bit more clarity to the criteria for holding zone removal. So with that, basically what we have done is we have put a notice in the paper, we have posted on social media, and we have posted on our website, inviting people to offer comments and questions. I would say, we had probably 5 or 6 engagements with me personally, where people were just asking questions. And this would be in addition to the number of questions I receive on a weekly basis regarding particularly additional residential units. So the bylaw that has been provided to council this evening is color-coded. I tried to make it easier to follow because each of the categories has a different set of appeal rights. So with respect to administrative, once passed or if passed, those would be subject to the typical appeal rights under the Planning Act. So there'd be a 20-day appeal period. The amendments outlined in red, they form the meat and bones of this amendment, and they pertain to the authorizing and permitting of additional residential units. And part of the reason why this bylaw amendment is so lengthy is that we needed to say the same thing over a number of times. And so we wanted to implement the changes in a number of residential zones. So that required saying the same thing in a few different ways. And then finally, the blue provisions within the draft bylaw pertain to those holding zone provisions. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that may have arisen during your review, can happily provide any supplementary information, take comments or recommendations, and then we will take that all back, discuss, and adapt the draft bylaw as council deems fit.
Okay, thank you, Christy. Are there any comments or questions from council concerning this report? Okay, we'll start with Councillor Barber and then Councillor Charlton. Go ahead, Councillor Barber.
Thank you, Worship. In reading over the document as best I could, I was surprised to see that additional residential units, ARUs, allow up to 3 residences per lot. I guess I was always assuming it would be an additional 1. I'd like a comment on that later. Tiny houses continues to be, or whatever we may define them as, where a detached building is added to the property. I don't have any problem with the renovation of a garage or the renovation of a basement area where it's within the existing dwelling. I am concerned about additional dwelling units being created on residential lots. It may be fine for the existing owner where the intent is perhaps to have family or in-laws in that unit, but eventually the property will be sold. Are there any examples of municipalities enacting similar type legislation and being confronted with challenges where a tenant may not exactly be desirable either to the area or to the property owner themselves, is one question. And we'll just run with that one right now for the tiny homes provision and any examples of this similar type bylaw being enacted anywhere else.
Through you, Mary French, may I respond?
Yes, go ahead, Christy.
Thank you for those questions, Councilor Barber. It appears that you've done your homework on this. So just to start, I maybe failed to mention or failed to properly explain, this is kind of going to be a tiered process. So when we did our official plan amendment just recently over the summer, we implemented direction that was already outdated. So under a previous provincial bill, additional residential units were structured as an or clause, so you could have them within the dwelling or attached to the dwelling or within an accessory building. So since that policy direction has come into place, Bill 108 More Homes, More Choice Act has come in, and it actually turns that or provision into an and provision, which then authorized up to 2 additional residential units plus your primary unit. So what we're proposing now is to keep in line with the direction that's already in the town's official plan. And once the county has the opportunity to undertake their 5-year review, we're going to have to implement some of the changes that they've made. So at that time, we would review our policy to be consistent with what the legislation says. So with respect to kind of your second point, being their concerns for that, detached accessory structure. Again, this is based on provincial legislation, and I can advise that this is a fairly standard practice now. So I was attending a workshop today where the City of Windsor has gone through this process and is, had some success. They have cases where there are up to 2 additional residential units, one being inside and one being in the rear yard or in a detached garage type structure. Based on an Ontario regulation 299-19, we actually can't require there to be a tenancy-based relationship. So while it may be preferable to have relatives or in-laws or some familial relationship occupy those accessory dwelling units, we can't actually require it. It is in our official plan right now, but it's kind of one of those things that's there and not necessarily consistent with the regulations provided by the province. So finally, the tiny house concept can mean a few different things. What we've done in this proposed bylaw is to stipulate an absolute minimum. So 17 square meters, I believe 180 square feet is quite tiny. This is the absolute minimum to meet an open concept building code requirement for space and room size requirements. So that's the absolute smallest you could go. But we've also stipulated maximum. So within the context of a detached accessory structure, it would need to be 40% or less of the gross floor area of the primary dwelling unit to a maximum of 75 square meters, so about 800 square feet. And why we've done that is we want that additional residential dwelling unit to be accessory to the principal use on the property, so kind of smaller and appearing subordinate, not necessarily changing the character of the neighborhood. But these are intended to, provide a new form of housing. So typically rental, typically, smaller in size, so like a bachelor or 1 bedroom, typically only occupied by 1 or 2 people. Not that we could necessarily regulate that, but it's really meant to diversify the range of housing opportunities that are available in town. And again, that's reflecting on, the affordability crisis, just the amount of housing we have available across the province. We're trying to take incremental steps to bring in new products and new forms into our communities and better utilize the existing infrastructure and land as efficiently as we can. So I'm happy to follow up on any questions you may have, Councillor Barber.
Do you have a follow-up question, Councillor Barber?
Yes, I do, Your Worship, and thank you. With all due respect to provincial policy, the people in Toronto can say anything they want, but when the boots hit the ground in our community, if something goes bad, we're the ones that have to fix it, and that's my concern. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Councillor Barber. Go ahead, Councillor Charlton.
Through you, Your Worship. I realize this provides extra housing, and we are not a highly dense housing area, and that we don't have so many people per hectare, as you say. But I think a big thing is affordable housing, and I don't think this will provide affordable housing. And I can't really see the rush to do this because once it goes through, I don't think there's any going back. I feel that people move to Aylmer because of the space. I don't know if that would affect people moving into the area if they had these separate dwellings up and down the street. So I just have a concern. I don't think we have to pass this tonight or this council. Don't we have a year or so? There's just a lot in here to digest. I wouldn't even mind a tour of, say, 10 homes to see how these structures might fit in the backyard. And in doing so, we could probably see how many garden sheds are too close to the lot line and probably should be moved. So I can't support this right now because there's too many unknowns to me. I just don't want to vote for it, hoping that it doesn't happen. I want to be comfortable with it. So those are just my thoughts. Thank you.
Go ahead, Christy.
Thank you, Mayor French. Through you, just to offer some commentary. This policy direction is actually embedded within the town's official plan. So right now, our policy direction as a town says, as of right, if you have municipal servicing to your property and you have a single detached, a semi-detached, or townhouse on an individual lot, you are permitted to have one of these. In our official plan, it calls them secondary dwelling units. So right now, if someone were to come forward and apply to the town for a zoning bylaw amendment to add that land use permission to their property, it would be very challenging for me as a planner to recommend that not be permitted. It would be consistent with policy direction at the provincial level. It would be in conformity with our official plan. What we're doing now is we're just implementing those policies that are already in place and making it easier for people to achieve direction that council has somewhat already endorsed. We do have some criteria in our official plan. It is laid out. It was part of the last review. And while we may not want to act on this immediately, that is completely acceptable. We can go back and take some time. Because we have just updated our official plan, we do have a 3-year window to bring these to give effect to the policies, to bring in the regulations that would allow these widespread permissions to be in place. So why we've expedited this process and brought them forward is just because one, we're trying to reduce red tape, so people don't necessarily have to apply for that zoning bylaw amendment that would technically be supportable, but also because we don't have a lot of developable land in Aylmer right now. We're trying to make the best use of what we have, while also just providing that range. And Perhaps I misspoke when I said affordable. It's not necessarily affordable housing, capital H, capital A, capital H, but rather a form of more affordable or more attainable housing, increasing rental supply, allowing people to stay at home a little bit longer in their own self-contained unit. So while I understand that there may be reluctance to move forward, certainly appreciate any feedback, how we can tailor this to reflect the needs and the appetite in the community. I do think that it is, again, an iterative process. So if we don't get it right the first time, we can go back and we can amend if we need to tighten things up or we need to loosen them. This just is I would say the first step. And honestly, I don't anticipate that the floodgates are going to open here. We're not going to have, 50 and 60 of these being built per year. I can tell you that a number of additional dwelling units within houses already exist, and we see that through our zoning compliance checks. And in those cases, they have been units that have been established over the years with or without building permits that we're finding challenging to check that checkbox that this is a permitted use. So we have people that have just put a kitchen in their basement so that their mother-in-law can stay down there independently, but not necessarily in conformity with the zoning bylaw. So this is just taking that step further, accommodating what's out in our community and hoping to reduce some of the red tape. We can use it as a learning opportunity and continue to refine the regulations as we see applications come in.
Go ahead, Councillor Charlton.
Thank you, Your Worship. So what's the process now, and how many requests have you had? Have you had like 5 or 15, or like if I wanted to do that, I'd come to the town hall tomorrow, and what's the process? If I wanted to put a residential building in my backyard.
So if I may, Mayor French?
Go ahead.
So we're not actually recommending that the bylaw be passed today. We're just providing it for public consultation and council input, like we're having this discussion right now. What we'll do is we'll take it back. We can make those revisions. We can tweak. We can extend our environmental scan. So I have done a scan of surrounding municipalities of what they've done, which have and have not implemented, and the direction they've taken. So we're not asking council to pass anything this evening. This is, again, we're having a conversation. So if this policy or if these regulations were in place, what you would do is you would call up CBO Heemstra and myself. We'd have a quick pre-consultation meeting. Make sure you meet the minimum criteria that we've outlined within this regulatory framework, that being provision of municipal servicing, looking at the ability to provide one parking spot, and then we'd start looking at your lot coverage. So we look at the area of the main floor building that would determine how much up to a certain maximum area you could have as a detached structure. And then you would be required to engage a designer similar to you would do to construct a house, and have it meet all Ontario Building Code standards. Servicing would be attached through existing servicing connections to the property, so it would be an extension. And one thing that I've learned through doing additional research is in the proposed bylaw, where we had established a minimum of 7.5 meters between the main dwelling and the additional residential dwelling unit. That's actually detrimental to infrastructure and servicing. So one of the takeaways that I had from the session I attended today was to look at what is a reasonable reduction. So enabling each person to have their own amenity space while trying to efficiently use the land. So once the building would be designed in compliance with the Ontario Building Code and any fire code regulations, you would then work with CBO Heemstra to obtain a building permit, similar to what you do with a house. You'd go through occupancy, final inspection, and we would go from there. We would keep track of the number of units that are being built in our community, just so we can see where we're sitting. I can advise that I do receive, I would say, at least 5 inquiries a week. Some people are just, feeling out what the town permits, what the town doesn't permit, what they're considering. Some people are, have a fundamental proposal in front of them saying, when can I get this going? Other people are building garages that have a second floor that could be converted at a later point in time, I think. So I think generally the community realizes that this is a direction that's come into place, and that there may be opportunities to have some socioeconomic benefits, some rental income, you know, a place for your university-aged child to live, or your older parents. And I think the community is generally preparing for it. And you know, we have a very diverse housing stock in Aylmer. We have a lot of older homes. Like I said, these have already, I would say the majority have been established in basements or in attics, the ones that we've come across. So it's not that it doesn't already exist. I'm not anticipating that, like I said, we're going to see a huge wave of people getting to construct. I would anticipate, you know, maybe 10 a year, just depending on, you know, when our proposed subdivisions get up and going, and when there's more marketing product, housing product in town.
Go ahead, Councillor Charlton.
Thank you. So well taken. I think maybe this is the wrong time, though. I think it would be nice to have an actual public meeting at the Old Town Hall to discuss this. I don't think there's any rush. You know, we have 3 years to do what we need to do, I guess. Anyway, that's all I had to say. Thank you.
So I'm good. Sorry, Councillor Oslach. I was just going to help out Councillor Charlton a bit. So basically what's happening tonight, Councillor Charlton, is we're having a public meeting, but we're just looking for input, because we're not going to make any decisions tonight. It's just so our staff can hear from the general public as well as from council. And you made some good points, but I think we're going to be looking at this again further when the actual bylaw comes forward. So basically, we're just looking for more input so that our staff will be able to put together, you know, the bylaw. And the thing is, with these kinds of things, we can make amendments. So we're not carved in stone, that we have the opportunity to do those amendments. Councillor Charlton?
So if staff comes back with a bylaw, we would have to vote on it, I gather, or amend it and send it back and have it brought forward again?
Well, I'm sure it's going to take a while before they can get this back to us, because they're going to have to go through all the information that they're receiving from the public as well as from us. And then when that point comes, you're right, then we'll vote on it at that point, or if we need more information or whatever. And I'm sure Andy could even elaborate more. Andy, did you want to elaborate a bit more so that Councillor Charlton understands the process?
Yeah. So just for council's benefit, I think there's value to continuing to pursue the process that Christy's laid out. It will take some time, but the one thing that we want to try to avoid is having applications for zoning amendments come forward where Christy, as a professional planner, has to recommend to council that they're denied or they're approved, and then council would be in the position to think that to deny them, right? Or if you wanted. So we'd like to try to make sure that since you already have these things in your official plan, that when staff bring forward something, they'll be in concert. Now that process might take some time. In the interim, what we'd like to do is certainly the holding provision on the new industrial park is an important aspect. So staff might pull that out and try to get that done sooner for you, just to delay that. But certainly we don't want to put a pin in this and put it on the shelf for 3 years, because it does raise the potential where Christy would be put in an awkward position as a planner presenting to council.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Councillor Oslach, I apologize. You did have your hand up before. Go ahead.
Your worship, Christy, you've answered a couple of questions that I have. One concerning lot coverage. Are you going to be concerned about lot coverage? Number two is that as I read the document, there's an unlimited number. There's no restriction on the number of people that can live in these dwellings. Am I correct?
Through you, Mayor French.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. to Councillor Oslach. Thank you for those questions. So with respect to the number of people that could potentially reside within an accessory dwelling unit, that's not something the zoning bylaw can regulate. We regulate land use and land use permissions. If we wanted to get into short-term rental regulations, such as regulating like an Airbnb or, different tenancy-based relationships, that would have to be through a separate bylaw. Through the zoning bylaw, I can't really achieve those sorts of limitations. With respect to the lot coverage, as you've mentioned, we have gone back and reviewed the zoning bylaw as it currently stands. So currently you can have an accessory building occupy 10% of the lot area to a maximum of, I believe it's 55 or 60 square meters. So to accommodate the additional residential units, we've increased that to propose to increase that to 15% lot coverage to a maximum of 75 square meters. So in this case, you would still have the space to have your garage or your shop, but that additional gross floor area could be used to accommodate an additional residential unit, or you could reduce the area of your shop and offset it with a larger additional residential unit. Again, these are numbers that are based on an environmental scan. The City of London did a lot of background research, and I relied on some of their documents to just see kind of where Aylmer would fit into the equation. Again, urban centers are a little different than small towns, and we do have a number of smaller sized lots, so we didn't want to overwhelm those lots with significant lot coverage. But again, open to recommendations and suggestions, what council may think is appropriate. And if we need to, do an exercise where we can visualize what lot coverage looks like, I'd be happy to facilitate that as well.
Thank you, Christy.
Deputy Mayor Andrews.
Thank you, Sir, Your Worship. Just a comment. We are in a housing crisis at this moment. I think it's really important that we step back, not just in our own world, not in just our own backyard. We have to understand that there are people out there who need affordable housing. We have an aging community. We need to really look at that from a small town perspective. Inflation today, 4.4%. What does that mean for people who can't afford a home? If you have a parent or a brother or a sister who is willing to put on, an addition to their home, a suite in their backyard for their aging parents, who are we to suggest that that's not appropriate? I think it's more than appropriate. I think that as a community, we can really set the mark and we can step up and we can do the right thing here. And I honestly feel like if not everybody has the funds to go ahead and put like everything that is required for these units, whether it's a granny flat, an apartment, because it does have to follow code. I think it's going to be people who are truly serious about helping out a family member or something. I think that, to just say outright that this isn't good for our community is completely wrong. We really need to take a really good hard look at this, and I fully support this. I really do.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Andrews, and I will concur with Deputy Mayor Andrews, and I will give a couple of examples. And Christy has touched upon them, but number one, we all understand that we're not to be using agricultural land for residential. And the thing is, if we want to get more residential units for our population in Aylmer, we're going to have to get more land. And what's that land? It's agricultural land. And that is not exactly something that the province is happy about. They're wanting people to put more housing on a smaller lot. So, in the cities, they go up. So maybe in a town, if you have a bigger lot, you could put another unit or whatever. Another thing we have to look at, and I see this clearly when I'm on county council, our long-term facilities, long-term care facilities, we don't have enough of them. There's a crisis. And so we all know baby boomers are, getting to the stage where some of them are looking for options such as retirement homes or long-term care. If people have the opportunity, as Deputy Mayor Andrews has said, that maybe their son or daughter would be willing to build an addition onto their home or something so that their parents can stay there. That's going to really help with the long-term care crisis. There's so many things that we have to look at. And I will say, this isn't just Aylmer, this is all over the place. There is a crisis. And the province have seen that, and we should be grateful that they've actually acknowledged it. And I'm in favor of this, and I'm very pleased to see all the information that Christy's brought forward. And I'd like to thank you, Christy. This is amazing. You've done a lot of hard work on this report. Now, are there any other questions or comments? Councillor Chapman, go ahead.
I agree, through your worship, with you and Deputy Mayor Andrews. The housing availability is so slim, and I hear it from my clients every day. People are trying to find accommodations. It's really hard right now, and if a homeowner is willing to put a smaller unit and it only covers 15% of their property, I think that, and up to a certain size, I don't think that they'll be building these buildings on a post-stamp lot, because there wouldn't be enough room. So it would already have to be a larger lot in order to accommodate the space. So I don't think that it will produce overcrowding. And I think that it's a good option for alternative housing.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman. Are there any further comments? Councillor Oslach, go ahead.
Yes, Your Worship. The low-income housing in Aylmer has a 2-year wait. Because I know this from experience, not my experience, but people coming into the Legion and everything. But this would alleviate that a lot of that conditions. And I agree with Deputy Mayor Andrews and Christy that this is a good thing for the town.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Oslach. Are there any further questions or comments? Josh, go ahead.
Through you, Mayor French, and two members of council, I just wanted to add on, sort of to reiterate what the CAO had mentioned, in that really this is the purpose of these types of public meetings, is to facilitate feedback from both the community and council to sort of guide staff decision making in terms of putting bylaws for consideration in front of council on these planning matters. So at this point, understanding that there are several different moving parts within this proposed housekeeping amendment, it might be preferable for council at this stage just to provide some direction to staff to produce 2 separate amendments for consideration at the subsequent meeting. At this point, the resolution suggests November 3rd, but if there are members of council that would like an opportunity to receive some more information from staff or to solicit additional feedback from the community respecting the additional residential units, I don't think that there's any reason that we can't still bring the consideration of the placement of the holding provision for consideration, just in the interest of time, in order to accommodate a developer on that matter. So again, just wanted to highlight that there are several moving parts on this proposed housekeeping amendment, and if council is agreeable to it, I think it might be appropriate for staff to sort of dichotomize these issues in this circumstance and provide those amendments for future consideration separately, rather than as one single housekeeping amendment.
Okay, thank you, Josh. I'll call one more time if there's any questions or comments, and if there aren't any more, we'll go with Josh. He's obviously got a couple of things going here with resolutions. Did you want to share the one resolution about the holding? Do we want to cover that one first?
Certainly, through your worship, we can still read the resolution as presented. I think with informal direction from council here, staff would just produce 2 separate proposed amendments at a future meeting. It's really just a matter of whether or not council would like to see both of those proposed amendments at the November 3rd meeting, or whether or not we'd like to see just the holding provision consideration at November 3rd, and in the other additional residential units considerations at a future meeting. That's really what we're looking for direction for on.
Okay, I'm sorry, I kind of misunderstood you, Josh. So council, are you okay with us discussing and doing a bylaw on November the 3rd for the holding and then have a different date for the other part that we're going to be looking at? So I'm seeing heads nod. So Josh, is that enough direction then? And then if you want to read what you have, we'll do that right now. And then council's comfortable then with part of it November 3rd with the holding and then another date for the rest so that we have more time to research this.
Certainly, through your worship, the resolution reads as it stands that report plan 1121 entitled background report for 2021 proposed general housekeeping amendment to the zoning bylaw be received for information, and that council consider public input at a public meeting scheduled for October 20th, 2021 at 7 p.m. and that council direct staff or council direct administration to prepare the implementing bylaw for the 2021 general housekeeping zoning bylaw amendment for consideration at the November 3rd, 2021 meeting of council and a future meeting of council. It being noted that the holding provision will be included on November 3rd in the additional residential unit at a future meeting of council. And further, that any comments received as a part of the statutory public meeting be considered in a future recommendation staff report.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Are there any questions or comments? And before we vote, Josh, is there anything we missed on the public meeting that you can see? I think we've got all the information we received. Christy showed us the letter that she received and then all the questions. Did you, just before we vote, did you have any other letters or anything, Josh?
Through your worship, there was no additional correspondence received other than the written correspondence that the planner had spoken to at the beginning of the public meeting.
Okay, thank you, Josh. I just wanted to clarify that so we didn't miss anything. So if there are no further questions or comments, we're going to need a mover and seconder. Did I call that yet? Sorry. Deputy Mayor Andrews and Councillor Oslach. All those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. So the second item on our public meeting this evening is report CAO 4621 Community Improvement Plan, and it's an update. Council will hear comments in the following order: the CAO amendment overview and any questions, additional comments based on council questions. From the public, individuals are asked to clearly state their name and address for the record of the clerk. The clerk, if there are any additional communications received with respect to this application, and the CAO will be available for clarification where required. So I will turn this over to Andy, please.
Thank you, Mayor French. Just at a high level, we did have a need to go out and do some more circulation to make sure we got all appropriate comments. And we did get an initial one from the county, which I've provided there in the memo. Just to highlight, there hasn't been anything changed in the proposed amendment. It has been the same as presented before. And certainly this speaks volumes to council's commitment to the community, that you're introducing these incentives for affordable housing and making this a priority for the community. This is a very big step forward that will really enable us to attract more affordable housing builds to the town of Aylmer. So certainly with that, I'll try my best to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, thank you, Andy. Are there any questions for Andy concerning this report? Okay, I don't think there's any questions. Josh, is there anything further you'd like to add, such as additional communications or anything besides the one that Andy has shared?
Through your worship, there was no additional correspondence received after the October 19th memo that's on the screen right now.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Well, if there aren't any further questions or comments, Josh, could you read the resolution, please?
That memo is associated with the report CAO 4621 respecting community improvement plan update be received as information, and that proposed community improvement plan update amendments to bylaws 3412 and 3512 be approved, and further, that comments received as part of the statutory public meeting be considered as part of this decision.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Deputy Mayor Andrews, and Councillor Barber. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And now a resolution for adjournment.
That council do now adjourn the public meeting at 8:05 p.m.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Ham and Councillor Chapman. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Now we'll move into the adoption of council and committee minutes. Minutes to approve.
That council approves the following minutes. Regular virtual meeting of council held on October 6, 2021.
Someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Chapman and Councillor Charlton. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. And minutes to receive.
That council receives the following minutes. Meeting of Elgin County Council held on September 28th, 2021, and meeting of Elgin Area Primary Water Supply System held on June 3rd, 2021.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Deputy Mayor Andrews and Councillor Chapman. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Now we'll move into the consent agenda.
That items 7.1 to 7.2 of the October 20th, 2021 consent agenda be received as information.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Oslach and Councillor Ham. Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Oslach?
Yes, Your Worship. 7.1. I called the health unit last Friday about the Legion and about workplace policies, vaccination. And basically, it's up to the individual business to set the policy. So I would say that all the businesses in Elmer have a different policy. And I don't understand, the province is downloading it on the health unit and the health unit is downloading it on the businesses. This is my comment.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Oslach. Are there any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. We'll now move into the action items. The first one up is a support letter for the OHIP Eye Care.
That the Town of Elmer Council support the resolution from Trent Lakes regarding OHIP Eye Care, and further that council directs staff to send a letter of support for the resolution to Premier Doug Ford, the Ontario Minister of Health Christine Elliott, and the Ontario Association of Optometrists.
Okay, thank you. Someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Oslach and Councillor Chapman. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. The next item up is support for against anti-hate crimes and incidents and banning symbols of hate.
That the Town of Elmer Council support the resolution from the municipality of Shunia regarding M84 anti-hate crimes and incidents and private members bill C313 banning symbols of hate act, and further that council directs staff to send a letter of support for the resolution to the Right Honorable Justin Trudeau, the Minister of Municipal Affairs Steve Clark, and the Minister of Citizenship and Multiculturalism Parm Gill.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Ham and Councillor Charlton. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next item up is report fire 0721.
That report fire 0721 entitled updates to the bylaw to regulate the sale of fireworks and setting off of fireworks be received for information, and that council directs staff to bring forward the bylaw 5821 being a bylaw to regulate the sale of fireworks and the setting off of fireworks with references to Labor Day and the civic holiday removed.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Chapman and Deputy Mayor Andrews. I'm going to turn it over to the fire chief. Good evening, Chief. Did you want to give any more information about this report?
Well, thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, Council. Yeah, just as a review, taking into consideration some input from the public. It's a step in the right direction to, as we are a leader in our environmental concerns. I think it's a right step for the town to strike a happy medium between the allowance of fireworks and still be responsible towards the environment. So that was the rationale for the change. I think it's a good move. It allows some flexibility and also supports the environmental concerns. So I'm here if there's any questions, Your Worship.
Okay, are there any questions for the fire chief? I just want to also remind council that, and the fire chief can correct me if I'm mistaken, but if a group does come forward and they're planning a big event and it doesn't fall on these specific dates, they could certainly come to council or to you, Fire Chief McCone, and we could certainly accommodate them if they were to plan an event like such as Labor Day.
Correct, Your Worship. If I can continue, Your Worship, it does give us provisions that any other dates related to a major public event, religious celebration, can be approved by the fire chief. So I think it strikes a happy medium for the whole community, Your Worship.
Okay, thank you very much. So if there are no questions or comments, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. The next item up is report EM 0121.
That report, Emergency Management 0121, entitled Emergency Management Control Group Members and Emergency Management Program Committee Members Appointment Update, be received as information. And further, that a recommendation be accepted to change the membership of both of these groups. And further, that council direct staff to bring forward an amendment to the bylaw 3204, being a bylaw to adopt an emergency management program for the town of Aylmer.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Ham and Deputy Mayor Andrews. And I will turn this back over to you again, Chief McCone, and maybe you can give us a bit more information on this report.
Certainly. Thank you, Your Worship. So this is kind of a housekeeping item that kind of cleans up our reporting system for towards our compliance yearly. What it really does, it brings the control group members, the decision makers, as all employees of the town, which is legislated, they must be. It just kind of cleans that up, makes it super easy for reporting and for meetings, for trainings. I know we did our training a couple months ago with our town employees, and it's easier to work with within one organization. We also watch that confidentiality that we keep it within our organization as well. And again, Your Worship, I'm here to answer any questions that council may have from my submitted report.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions or concerns? Councillor Charlton and then Councillor Barber.
Through Your Worship, to the fire chief. I was reading the response plan booklet. It's very good. People don't realize that when you see emergency people on TV giving a report about flood or fire or big accidents, so there is a protocol to go through. However, I do think this booklet needs to be updated. It has in there the police chief is Bill Siggy and the fire chief is Fred Coleman, and a lot of these people are either retired or no longer with us. It even talks about the East Elgin Memorial Community Center, which is the old arena, which is no longer there. So I thought, like, the plan is good, but there needs to be some updates done. Thank you.
Yes, through Your Worship, to Councillor, good catch. That is being updated as we speak. What we have is our sticks that we give to all our members, and that's in the process. I assure you right now that is under update, and it should be released, I'm hoping, next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Barber, I believe you had your hand up.
Thank you, Worship. To the chief, if I may, I noticed that there is, at least in the way that I look at it, that there isn't anyone from operations on the new CEMC committee or the emergency committee. Has that person would normally be roads, water, any of the infrastructure. Can you explain the rationale behind that decision?
Certainly, through the worship to Councillor Barber.
Yes, go
The
ahead.
actual alternate CEMC is our Director of Operations. We tend to go with titles, not names, when we structure the policy. And as you can see, it doesn't list any names, just positions. So the actual alternate CEMC is our Director of Operations.
Okay, that makes more sense now. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Are there any further questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. Thank you, Chief McCone.
Thank you.
The next report is OPNS 1921.
That report, OPNS 1921, entitled Elmer Lagoons Aqua Technical Memorandum, be received for information, and that the recommendations for improvements and optimization to the lagoons and treatment systems recommended in the Aqua report be included in future budgets for council consideration.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Charlton and Councillor Chapman. Hi, Rob. I'm going to turn it over to you, and maybe you can give us an overview of this report.
Thank you, Your Worship. I won't go into too much detail. It is a technical memo. Myself, I had to read it a couple of times and get some guidance from Aqua as well. So I appreciate that it's technical in nature. As council will recall, we engaged Aqua to do a review of our treatment lagoons. We have some odor issues annually in the spring, and then to also look at our operations to make some recommendations. Those lagoons are sort of a living, breathing facility, if you will. So not one thing is separate from other things. So what they've done is they've gone through and sort of looked at our system, how it's being operated, how it's working, and sort of to make some recommendations as well. It'll come as no surprise to council that the sand filters, the volume you can push through the sand filters is our limiting factor most of the year. And in fact, with these significant rain events that we've had lately, the sand filters only push out so much volume, the rest goes into storage. And we go into a direct discharge come November 1st. So we're anxiously waiting for November 1st to get here, because we are reaching capacity right now, especially with those things. What the report does say, though, if I can use sort of a pool analogy, and this is how I got it straight in my head, if you were to take your sand filter for your pool and take the skimmer basket out, which would be our headworks, also let your pool turn green and full of leaves, run all that through your sand filter, you can see it's not the sand filter that has to be expanded or changed. It's sort of the processes that head towards that. And this is no different. There are no headworks for our system. So every time a toilet gets flushed in Elmer, it goes to the main pump station and then goes right through to the lagoons. So that's one thing that really has to be fixed. They're recommending in here that we implement some sort of headworks to go forward. The other thing that I see as a real challenge for us is our aeration system. The main cell that requires, the very first cell, it would like to get the most amount of air for our microbes, because it has to deal with all the sludge and stuff that comes in. And the way the piping process is working with our aeration, our air is going to cell 2, when really we need to get air into cell 1. It's not a straight turn of valve. There's a bubble system that has to be looked at. So for example, if we were to turn the air off on cell 2 to force it into cell 1, the aeration system on cell 1, the pressure is set so we don't blow all the heads off on the bottom. Those bubbler systems can only take so much. So we would, the aeration on cell 1 would fault out. So our air system isn't working 100%. The air system impacts how the lagoons treat all of the effluent right down to the filter. So I guess in summary, I would say if it was my money that I would be spending, those are probably the two areas that I would probably look at first. Some sort of headworks, whether they're at the lagoon or at our main pump station, and then to optimize our air systems at the lagoons. And I will say that when we started looking at our financial plan for water and sewer that council just committed and adopted, we gave some high level numbers already in that rate study. So they're there, but we haven't broken them down. And so I think moving forward, we need to take these little pieces now and start to make our system perform a little bit better, if that helps. So.
Thank you, Rob. Are there any questions or comments? Councillor Barber, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. To Rob, if I may, Lagoon 101, the turbo blowers that are referred to in the report, that's the bubbler system, is it not?
Through your worship to Councillor Barber, yes, that's correct. And many members of council will remember there's 3 older blowers up there. 2 of them don't really work that well, if at all. One does work. Council took one of the old blowers out some years ago and put that turbo blower in there and significantly reduced your electricity costs, because those old blowers are electricity pigs, if you will. I don't know of a better term. So the new turbo blower runs 99.9% of the time.
Follow-up, if I may, Your Worship.
Go ahead, Councillor Barber.
Thank you. To Rob again, you mentioned hydro cost. Does the lagoon system use enough power to warrant buying through a cooperative hydro group?
It's something that I've wanted to look at, Councillor Barber. I have not had the time, and I know that you see that in the water systems. I think that's probably where you're drawing on that reference from, that it is an advantage in the water systems to jointly buy the power. It's probably something that we need to look at our lagoons and pump stations.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, Councillor Oslach, go ahead.
Your worship to Rob, how do you feel about the report overall?
Through your worship to Councillor Oslach, I was very pleased. I know I've been hesitant, or not hesitant, but not quite sure where the best bang for our buck would be. And you can see the recommendations here there's a few of them. Some of them are to tackle our C of A's with the Ministry of the Environment, to clean that up a little bit. There's a number of good recommendations in here. This was simply a roadmap though, so we'll have to engage a little more detail. Like, for example, headworks will be something that we'll have to hire an engineer to do a better study on and come up with a better plan. But I think I was pleased with this report. I was very pleased with the author. She knew her stuff inside and out. She would answer any question. So I think we got a good value for our money.
Thank you, Rob.
Are there any further questions or comments? Okay, well, thank you, Rob. All those in favor? And that's carried. The next item up is Report Clerk 3821.
That report, Clerk 3821, respecting Town of Aylmer election sign bylaw informational update, be received for information, and that council directs staff to include the election sign bylaw for consideration at a future meeting of council.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Deputy Mayor Andrews and Councillor Chapman. Josh, did you have anything further to add to your report?
Certainly, through your worship and 2 members of council, in preparation for the upcoming municipal election in 2022, staff have begun the process of reviewing existing bylaws that relate to the administration of elections. Historically, election signage has been a fairly common inquiry during municipal, provincial, and federal election periods. And this has led staff to review best practices demonstrated by similarly sized municipalities in urban settings. The purpose of this report is to provide council and the community the opportunity to comment on a draft election sign bylaw. It's anticipated that staff would prepare a final election sign bylaw, which would include any additional considerations or recommendations at a future regular meeting for consideration. Just to summarize some of the key points included in this draft election sign bylaw, we've taken the opportunity to enhance some of the definitions within this bylaw just so that they're in line with the relevant legislation. So most notably, we've aligned the definitions with many of the definitions included in the Municipal Elections Act. Furthermore, we've set standards for signage on private property, provided some clarity on the town's ability to regulate signage on just in terms of jurisdictional autonomy. So one of the challenges that we do run into in Aylmer is that, we've got a provincial highway and a county road intersecting the town. So that's a little bit challenging for the town to have a regulation regarding signage on. Furthermore, we've provided some information regarding the timing and placement for removal of election signs, special provisions for vehicle election signs, provisions for campaign office election signs. We've spoken to third-party advertisements, and also we provided some standardized processes for consideration that outline the how staff would handle the removal of unlawful election signs. Furthermore, I just wanted to note that it's anticipated that if we were to approve such a bylaw, the service standard for bylaw enforcement would remain in effect. So in other words, staff and municipal bylaw enforcement would react to matters on a complaint-driven basis unless they're a matter of public or life safety. So in short, it's anticipated that increased specificity in a town election sign bylaw will positively contribute to the continued administration of fair, consistent, and safe elections in the town for years to come. And at this point, I'm happy to answer any questions from council. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Are there any questions for Josh? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried, thank you. And the next item up is report CAO 6121.
That report CAO 6121 respecting fiber connectivity update be received as information, and further that council supports staff's efforts to expand high-speed fiber optic internet access in the town of Aylmer.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Chapman and Councillor Barber. And I'll turn it over to you, Andy. If you want to add some more to this report, please.
Thank you, Mayor French. Throughout my conversations with council members, there's been a routine theme that we really need to do something for the community in terms of high-speed internet. I know council members listen to the residents and you've heard their concerns on this issue. That's why I'm very pleased that we're now at the stage where we can inform the community that we anticipate widespread implementation of fiber internet in Aylmer in 2022. One guiding principle of this process is to encourage a competitive local marketplace for fiber. So we're working with multiple service providers to try to coordinate installations. That also helps to make sure that we're not ripping up boulevards more than once. Staff are well positioned to accommodate prospective high-speed internet modernization. Actions that have been taken or are in the process to accommodate such works includes council's approval of the road occupancy policy to permit infrastructure to encroach upon municipal right-of-ways, and the integration of as-built engineered drawings into the town's GIS system to streamline the installation process. So we do have the staff and systems in place to support this. And again, though, we would not be where we are on this issue now if it weren't for the advocacy and support of council. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Are there any questions or comments for Andy? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor? And that's carried. Are there any matters of urgency or new business? Okay, seeing none. We'll move into reading of bylaws and proceedings thereon.
That council approves and gives 3 readings to bylaw 6121, being a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute an agreement with CJDL Consulting Engineers for consulting services for the replacement of the existing water storage facility, and bylaw 5421, being a bylaw to amend the bylaws 3412 and 3512, being bylaws to designate community improvement project areas within the municipality of the town of Aylmer.
Okay, someone to move and someone to second. Councillor Ham and Deputy Mayor Andrews. Are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried. Are there any inquiries by members? Councillor Oslach? You're on mute, Councillor Oslach.
Sorry about that. Your worship, will it be a vaccination mandate for council and staff in the town of Elmer coming?
I'll turn that over to our CAO.
Thank you, Mayor French. This is a big issue, so I certainly won't cover all aspects of it. Just briefly, we surveyed staff and we found vaccination rates of almost 95% in the town. So I want to thank staff for setting such a strong leadership example, not only in our community, but provincially and nationwide. To provide some context, when local municipalities began discussing vaccine mandates last month, there still wasn't any requirement for workers in long-term care or retirement homes to be vaccinated. So less than a month ago, the provincial medical officer of health was suggesting such mandates to try to get their staff vaccination rates up to 80%. So again, very proud that our staff has almost 95% vaccination for some time. With the timelines for implementation of these policies elsewhere, it's fair to say that Elmer can still anticipate to have higher rates of vaccination than most organizations throughout November, and likely for the remainder of the pandemic. The decision around whether staff present a vaccine policy or not is clearly a council one. Anecdotally, we have seen a lot of municipalities invest significant time and resources into policies that will face considerable challenges and require significant resources to defend. So again, I support any direction council provides, but I do feel a lot of municipalities rushed into the policy void left by the province with the best intentions and likely wish that they took a more deliberate approach to this issue. I certainly don't say this to challenge the recommendation of the medical officer of health that we had on our agenda today. I have experience in my former municipality working directly with an MOH on recommendations and orders, and certainly agree with MOH's underlying desire to see vaccination rates as high as possible and to recommend many approaches such as additional vaccine clinics, incentives to get vaccines, or mandates. It is, however, hard to find fault with an organization like Elmer that has a vaccination rate of around 94.8%. So we are well positioned, and it's ultimately up to council whether or not they do want us to go and do the work and dedicate a lot of resources to developing a policy.
Thank you, Andy.
I believe there was another councillor. Was it Councillor Charlton? Go ahead.
Yes, through your worship. To Andy, will Clarence Street get a second paving coat this fall, or are they waiting till next year, or when?
Rob, are you on for Clarence Street? I might defer to Rob.
Okay.
Clarence Street is due for a top lift next year. We like to let it sit for 1 year to make sure there's no issues with the underground. If we do have an issue with the underground, it allows us to dig it up and make the repair so the top lift stays nice and smooth.
Okay.
Are there any further inquiries by members? Oh, sorry, Councillor Charlton, go ahead.
And, yes, thanks, your worship. And once again, is there a tour of the town facilities coming up for council? Is that coming up next month, or is that November 22?
That's a great question. I've been meaning to touch base with Rob and the senior staff to arrange that, because we certainly would like to provide a date for council members that are interested, so we could get it done maybe before our capital budgets in November. So we will be reaching out shortly to try to provide something.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, are there any more inquiries by members? Okay, I don't see anyone's hand up. Okay, we'll move into statements and committee reports. Okay, we'll start with Councillor Barber. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Elgin Area Water Board recently passed their 2022 budget. of 14.765 million for operations and 4.5 million for capital projects. We're fiscally responsible in that we've maintained the 5-year budget forecast and staying within the 4% cost of the rise in the cost of the raw water. It's worked well. We'll be reviewing the 5-year forecast in 2022 and anticipate that the 4% will drop initially to 3%, and then we'll work from there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Barber. Deputy Mayor Andrews, you're next.
Thank you, through your worship. I just want to announce that the Aylmer Police Services Board is seeking a provincial appointee to fill an upcoming vacancy on the Police Services Board. So we're encouraging members of the community who wish to apply to serve on the Aylmer Police Services Board that you register at a link that I will speak about in just a second. You can create a profile and register your interest in the Aylmer Police Services Board, which will effectively start the application process. So we have this opportunity open now. It is available for members of the community to apply. And the link is going to be put on the town webpage under news and current opportunities. And we've also asked if it can be shared on social media as well with the town. So spread the word, and there's a spot open. It's a small group, but very effective, and we'd love to see someone step forward for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Andrews. Councillor Oslach, you're up next.
Your worship, the Catfish Conservation Authority has settled on a 5% levy this year, for next year, and that amounts to $17,000 over 5 municipalities. So it is really minimal for the town of Aylmer, and I hope that in budget time that we look at that seriously and adopt it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Oslach. Are there any further statements or committee reports? Okay, seeing none, the next item up is the report of the mayor. I just want to remind for community organizations that applications for the town grants are due on October the 31st. For assistance or more information, please reach out to Josh Brick or visit the town webpage. Are there any notices of motion this evening? Seeing none, resolution to move into a meeting closed to the public, please.
That council moves into a meeting closed to the public at 8:37 p.m. to discuss the following matters. Chief Administrative Officer report CAO 63, respecting a lands update, and Chief Administrative Officer report CAO 6221, respecting employee-related matters. And both of these items are pursuant to section 239, 2C, and 2D of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, as the subject matter pertains to a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality, and to labor relations or employee negotiations.
Okay, thank you, Josh. Someone to move and someone to second? Deputy Mayor Andrews and Councillor Ham, are there any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? And that's carried.